The chemistry and charisma of a lead actor can make or break an entire film. Can you imagine Tom Cruise as Marty in Back to the Future? How about Martin Short as James Bond? Or what about Sir Lawrence Oliver as Mrs. Doubtfire? Well, neither can we, because these actors were never in the running for any of these famous parts. But here's 10 actors who were almost cast in some of the most iconic roles in cinema history. Join ScreenRant as we venture into what-if territory with these 10 alternate choices for some of your favorite characters. Mama always said life is like a box of chocolates. She never said life is like a box of grease lightning. But things might have been different if John Travolta was cast as Forrest Gump. 1994 was huge for Travolta. He made a career comeback with one of his most memorable roles as Vincent Vega in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. That same year, Travolta was also the top choice for the most coveted role in the works, Forrest Gump. Travolta turned it down in what he himself has dubbed one of the biggest mistakes of his career. But we gotta ask, has he seen Battlefield Earth?
Oh, you're too much!
Playing Gump would have given Travolta the chance to show a side we hadn't really seen from the actor. A good-natured person who inadvertently impacts major events of the 20th century. That said, we can't imagine Travolta making quite the same impression as Tom Hanks. After all, Hanks just exudes the kind of good guy, everyman energy that perfectly fits the part. Pulp Fiction was a better fit for Travolta and led to a career resurgence for the actor. That said, Travolta turned down a couple of other roles later snatched up by Hanks, including the leads in Splash and Apollo 13. Sometimes, when it comes to accepting or passing on influential movie roles, stupid is as stupid does. In the early 70s, The Godfather was the biggest book on the bestseller list. Naturally, for its motion picture adaptation, everyone in Hollywood wanted to be a part of it. The casting process was exhausting, with director Francis Ford Coppola seeing every young actor around. At the time of Godfather's release, the biggest name attached to the picture was Marlon Brando. Al Pacino's career grew to astronomical heights as a result of the classic film, and he's been associated with every gritty crime dramas and mob movies ever since. From Scarface to Carlito's Way to The Irishman. But the career path of another 70s superstar would have been drastically different if he was given the part. Jack Nicholson, an original contender for Michael, would later get his chance to portray a criminal boss in Martin Scorsese's 2006 Oscar-winning flick The Departed. But his time in organized crime could have happened as early as 1972. In a 2004 Movie Phone interview, Nicholson revealed just how close he came to getting the role. The star of The Shining and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest explained that he turned down the part, saying, "Back then, I believed that Indians should play Indians and Italians should play Italians." While Nicholson can certainly play tough, dark, and smarmy characters, we agree with Nicholson. Pacino was Michael Corleone, and only Pacino could have played the character's transformation so perfectly. We all know that there is no spoon, but did you know that when it comes to The Matrix, there was almost no Keanu? Reeves, who's come a long way from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, is a go-to action superstar. Thanks to roles in Point Break and Speed, he'd proven himself early in his career as a rough-and-tumble performer who was perfect for thrillers. The Matrix helped solidify him as the person audiences trust most to keep his cool when the world seems to fall apart around him. That said, Neo was almost played by another actor synonymous with action flicks, the Fresh Prince himself, Will Smith. Apparently, Smith turned down the lead in the Wachowski actioner so that he could appear in Wild Wild West instead. While the film spawned what some might say is the greatest cowboy rap song for a movie featuring a giant robot spider, it probably wasn't the best career move. Smith would have brought a ton of charisma to the role, with quips and catchphrases to spare, but what works so well about The Matrix is its moody and atmospheric style, as well as the fact that Keanu Reeves plays into the world of the movie rather than commenting on it. Smith himself said, "I would have messed it up. At that point, I wasn't even smart enough as an actor to let the movie be, whereas Keanu was smart enough to just let it be." Gwyneth Paltrow helped launch the massive juggernaut that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe way back in 2008. Her portrayal of Pepper Potts, always cool under fire, has proven that behind every Iron Man is a determined and steadfast Iron Woman. But you may not have been aware of the fact that she nearly appeared as the lead in a very different cinematic juggernaut, Apparently, Paltrow turned down the chance to play Rose in Titanic. The actress revealed this news in an interview with Howard Stern in 2015. Rumor has it, she turned down the part to be in the less remembered film Sliding Doors. That didn't hurt her career any, as Paltrow has been acting steadily every year since, and perhaps it was for the best, since Titanic was infamous for its stressful production. Working conditions were reportedly difficult, what with everyone constantly soaking wet, and James Cameron being a notoriously meticulous perfectionist when it came to, well, everything. As for Paltrow, she remained upbeat about the situation, saying, "You look at the big picture and think, there's a universal lesson here. What good is it to hold on to roles?" Fun fact, at the same time as Titanic, Kate Winslet very nearly played Gwyneth Paltrow's role Viola in Shakespeare in Love. Rami Malek took home an Oscar for his free-spirited and heartfelt take on Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, but he didn't have to sing the songs. Taron Egerton, on the other hand, sang and danced his way through the energetic and exciting Elton John biopic, Rocket Man. With that in mind, many film fans were shocked to learn that Taron wasn't even nominated for the Oscar after breathing new life into the sequined pianist's many iconic tunes, even after he won a Golden Globe for the same performance. While it's certainly a snub for the ages, at least Elton John can take solace in the fact that his on-screen persona was given the perfect tribute by such a talented actor, especially after Elton's original choice couldn't be involved. Initially, Elton John intended for Justin Timberlake to play the part. In a lot of ways, Timberlake makes sense as John. He's a modern-day music icon who has a sense of humor, an on-stage flair, and he can act as well. He can hit those high notes. Elton and producer David Furnish first considered Timberlake when they caught sight of the singer's uncanny Elton John impression in This Train Don't Stop There Anymore, some 18 years before Rocket Man came out. While Timberlake was always on their minds, the movie was never at the right stage of development for them to approach JT. By the time it was released, the producers moved on, and Egerton ended up being the perfect choice. While we continue going through these different actors in iconic roles, don't ask yourself how different your life would have turned out had you watched that one ScreenRant video that got away. Subscribe to the channel on your phone. Go to settings, turn on notifications, and YouTube will notify you whenever the next ScreenRant video is available. Now, on to the rest of this list. Without Peter Jackson's epic adaptation of Tolkien's legendary novels, you might think Viggo Mortensen is just the name of a character on History Channel's Vikings, but the rightful king of Gondor was almost played by Russell Crowe. Sure, the guy who played the Gladiator also has a history of violence on screen, but having a named actor play Aragorn definitely would have changed the way we perceived the character. While Russell Crowe rocketed to fame not too long before The Fellowship of the Ring was released, Gladiator was so huge, it would have been hard for us to separate the hero of Rome from the hero of Middle-earth. Russell addressed this on Howard Stern. According to Crowe, Peter Jackson approached him right when his career had really taken off, and Russell sensed that he wasn't the filmmaker's preferred choice. Believing that Jackson was being pressured by the studio to consider him, and assuming that a high fantasy film wouldn't do too great at the box office, Russell turned down the part. Stern suggested that they probably would have given Crowe 10% of the final gross, which, when it came to Lord of the Rings, would have given the actor quite a nest egg. Crowe responded that he doesn't tend to regret the path not taken, except when it's brought up in interviews with Howard Stern. It's easy to forget Matthew Broderick, who got his start in Neil Simon Plays on Broadway and in the classic 1986 John Hughes comedy Ferris Bueller's Day Off, was once considered the perfect pick to play a hip teenage slacker. Nowadays, he tends to get cast as the resident sad sack and middle-aged doofus, but maybe it's his ability to be mischievous and likable and safe at the same time that makes him so appealing. We side with Broderick's Ferris Bueller the minute he faces the camera and starts talking to us. Could the same have been said if Johnny Depp got the part? With Depp's edgier persona, it would have taken a lot more work to get the audience on Depp's side. When Depp was interviewed for Inside the Actor's Studio, he confirmed that he was unable to take on the role due to his busy schedule, and Broderick ended up nailing the part. Depp got his break in 1984's Nightmare on Elm Street and appeared in several smaller films as well as Platoon before things really picked up for him. At the time, other actors up for Ferris included Jim Carrey and Tom Cruise. Every year, a movie is in the works that takes Hollywood casting by storm. In 2015, one of those movies was the adaptation of 50 Shades of Grey. The woman who got the coveted female lead was Dakota Johnson. Dakota is Hollywood royalty, the daughter of Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith. But before she was cast as Anastasia Steele, a different kind of royalty was considered. It was Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, the first of her name, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, Protector of the Seven Kingdoms, the Mother of Dragons, the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the Unburnt, the Breaker of Chains, aka Emilia Clarke of Game of Thrones fame. Clarke ultimately turned down the opportunity to appear in the smash hit, mainly because she didn't want the film's excessive nudity to define her career. After bearing it all during Game of Thrones' earlier seasons, the actress was tired of nudity being the main topic of conversation around her career. Clarke commented saying, quote, "I did a minimal amount and I'm pigeonholed for life," end quote. She turned down the part where, in her words, the entire thing is about sensuality, all of that stuff. Plus, she preferred to avoid doing a franchise after a decade of playing one character. Al Pacino got to make his mark as Michael Corleone, changing movie history and making himself into a bankable A-list star. And his star status almost got him cast in a different movie about stars and wars. Yup, Pacino was on the short list for the role of Han Solo, and he would have been part of not one, but two unforgettable franchises spawned in the 1970s. It's hard to imagine anyone other than Harrison Ford playing the part of the cool, calm, and collected anti-hero. After all, would Pacino have been able to fly as casual? Could he put the smug in Smuggler? We doubt it would even feel like the same character. It's difficult to see Pacino's Solo being as freewheeling and fun as Ford's, but maybe a short-tempered and subdued pilot for hire who'd bust out a hoo-ah when he showed up during the Death Star trench run would have given us an entirely different movie. At the time of its release, the Star Wars cast list was full of unknowns, with the notable exceptions being Alec Guinness and Peter Cushing. If Pacino was there, Star Wars may have had an easier time of getting made, but it probably wouldn't have made as much of a lasting impact as it does today. The special effects helped to bring the audience to the screenings in 1977, but it was the chemistry of Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford that kept bringing audiences back for more. Speaking of Harrison Ford, another unforgettable role almost wasn't his. After proving himself on the Star Wars set, Ford was the ideal choice for everyone's favorite adventuring archaeologist when Tom Selleck couldn't play Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's right. The mustachioed Magnum PI was originally the man in the fedora. Not only was he George Lucas and Steven Spielberg's top choice, but Selleck wanted to be a part of the production too, and he went so far as screen testing for the role, giving us a little bit of an idea of how his portrayal would go down. Unfortunately, CBS wouldn't let him out of his contract for his new show. While Magnum PI hasn't had as lasting an impact as the Indiana Jones franchise, Selleck is still closely associated with Magnum, and the role got him a much coveted Emmy. As for Ford, Lucas was hesitant to give the actor the role at first because he had already directed him in both Star Wars and American Graffiti. Lucas relented and later admitted that Ford was perfect. We have to say, we agree. Do you think that these actors would have improved on these already iconic films? Or would they have made these famous movies into infamous train wrecks? Let us know in the comments section below, and share any other behind-the-scenes stories about the greatest films of all time, and those other movies that would have been better if only a different performer was cast in the lead. ScreenRant will be here with more amazing videos to keep you thinking about how amazing cinema is and how great it could be. See you next time.